Hey there, this is Todd with Real Social Dynamics, and what I want to talk to you about today is the difference between is right and seems right. Something that I've noticed a lot in my life, and in fact some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life have come about because I did what seemed right rather than what I knew to be right. But let me give you a quick example that's actually very appropriate to this moment. I'm here in Washington, D.C. in front of the Capitol building shooting my video. Something very interesting happened just a couple minutes ago. One of the security guards that's here just doing his job, I'm sure, trying to do the best he can, but he came over and he told me that I wasn't allowed to shoot using my tripod, which was actually doubly interesting in this case because the tripod I'm using right now is actually broken. It's missing the top piece that you would screw the camera into, so I wasn't even using it as a tripod. I was actually laying it sideways, using it as just a metal bar in order to level the camera so I could get a nice steady level shot, but it wasn't even being used as a tripod. But anyway, he came and told me that I wasn't allowed to use the tripod. And I thought this was really interesting, so I decided to pursue it further and see what could be done, what couldn't be done. And it turns out that I'm allowed to shoot here, obviously, since I'm shooting here now and I haven't been arrested yet. So I'm allowed to shoot here. I'm just not allowed to shoot using a tripod, right? And I'm not allowed to shoot using a tripod even if it's not being used as a tripod. So that's interesting too. On top of that, apparently, I could go down the street, get a permit, which would be granted to me, come back, and then I could shoot using the tripod, and I could get a day permit. So if I'm willing to go through the hassle, I actually could shoot using a permit and using a tripod. So if anybody can explain those rules to me, please feel free. When this comes out on the forum, please feel free to explain that to me. But it's very interesting, right? It's very interesting that a lot of the rules that we live our life by, a lot of times they don't make sense. A lot of times they're pretty arbitrary. A lot of times they may have come from some historical precedent, they may be meant to deal with some really weird, obscure situation or something that's not applicable. I mean, logically, is there really a difference in this case between me sitting here using the tripod or having the tripod sitting right here, like a foot away? No, really, it's not a difference. But I don't know, for some reason, that's what the rule is in place. Maybe it discourages people from doing too much professional photography here. It just creates a little hassle for people. I don't know what it is. In any case, the point is rules don't necessarily make sense. Let me give you two very, very good examples of this. Now, the first example I want to give you is actually from a joke I heard. Now, this may or may not actually be true, but it strikes me as something that could be true, and it's a great metaphor for how the world really works. Basically, the way it works, the way the joke goes, is that they ask a guy who designed one of the rockets at NASA why the propulsion engines for this particular shuttle were designed of the size that they were, of the dimensions that they were. He says it wasn't because it was scientifically the right way to do it, but he says it's because that's what was available. That was what you could get as, spec parts for certain things. Someone dug deeper and said, why is that the case? And it turns out that the reason that's the case is that they had to ship the parts in via railroad. And so the railroad tunnels are of a certain dimension. If you get bigger than that, then obviously you can't fit them through the tunnel. So then they dug a little deeper and said, okay, why were the tunnels designed this size? Well, it's because of the size of railroad tracks. And railroad tracks, why are they this size? It was determined that was because that had been the size of the old horse and ox cart tracks that had existed before the railroads, and they had just laid the one track over the other because it just made sense to do it. It was just the easier way to lay the track. And then they said, why were the horse and ox cart tracks designed that size? And it turns out it was essentially the size of the butts of two horses stacked next to each other. And so the punchline of the joke was that our space policy was determined by two horses' asses hundreds of years ago. Anyway, the point is that a lot of rules come into being for really arbitrary reasons that don't make any sense, and a lot of times they're not questioned. A lot of times they're just not questioned. Nobody bothers to question, nobody bothers to think about why this is the rule, whether the rule makes sense, whether it's applicable here, whether it needs to be used in this particular case. So we end up following the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law, rather than what the law was actually designed to do, right? We still have all these unintended consequences. You'll see this throughout all of life. You see this in law, in economic policy, in regulations. Excuse me. You'll see it in academic curriculums. You'll see it all over, where we do things because it's the tradition. We do things because it's what's been done before, and it's just not questioned, okay? One really great example of this is social conditioning. Social conditioning, specifically in the case of girls. So I'm going to give you a quick little routine that I'll use sometimes with girls. And this is for at the end of a date. Say you want to take a girl home, but you're in a bad logistical situation. Maybe you're half an hour from your place, half an hour from her place, and it's really just a bad situation. And it's pretty on. You'd like to take her home now. You have a feeling if it doesn't go now, then it might be hard to get a day two. You're right at that kind of point of no return. So what I'll say to them a lot of times, I'll say, you know what? It's really interesting because I'm caught in two minds right now. There's one part of me that wants to do something that I know would be safe and that I know would be tolerable and acceptable. And if anyone was watching us right now, they would totally agree with it and say it's okay, it's the right thing to do. No one would ever object to it. And then there's another part of me that just wants me to follow my heart and do what I know is right. And I don't know, are you the kind of girl that likes to follow rules and regulations and do what other people tell you? Or are you the type of girl who can actually, like, if you know something's right, just go with it and just do it? I'm actually just really curious. So always she'll be like, oh yeah, no, I totally, like, I'm my own person, I can think for myself, I totally passionate, I can totally do whatever. So then what I tell her is, look, the right on paper thing to do would be for us to go our separate ways now, for you to go home, for me to go home, for us to see each other maybe in a week, to maybe talk on the phone, maybe make some specific plan, maybe go through a bunch of rigmarole and have to adjust our schedules and hope and pray and cross our fingers that maybe it works out, that we can see each other again. And in any case, even if that works out, to have to wait to get to know each other when we're having a good time now. So I don't know, I'm having a good time now. I'm enjoying meeting you, I'm enjoying seeing you. I just want to keep meeting you. I just want to keep this going right now, and whatever we have to do for that to happen. And I want you to know, I don't think like I don't want it signed in blood. You don't have to have like the sex tonight or anything like that. I just want it to be a situation where I can continue to meet you. However we have to make that happen. Do you know any way we can make that happen? And so a lot of times that works really, really well, and they really jump on board with the idea that you're just calling out the fact that, yes, society would say it's right for us to separate, but if you look at it logically, if you look at this moment, instead of following the social conditioning, instead of just following what people would say is right, you follow what actually is right, you come to a very different result, okay? So that's my lesson to you today. I want to encourage you guys to, whenever you're caught up in a decision, whenever you're doing something that seems a little ridiculous, a little weird, a little awkward, think to yourself, am I doing this because it's actually the right decision? Am I doing this because I actually even made a decision? Or am I doing this because I'm blindly following some rule, or because it's just habit? Am I just doing it because this is the way I've done it before, or because this is the way someone else has done it before? Because when that's the case, a lot of times you're going to be massively inefficient, and sometimes you're even going to be stupid. So really think about that. Really think about trying to live every moment of your life as what's right for this moment, not what was right in the past or what has been handed down for you as a regulation. Don't follow rules because they're rules, unless there's an extreme consequence, in which case even then you're not following it because it's a rule, you're following it because it's the smart thing to do, because the consequence is so high. All right, so that's it. So basically, I guess what I'm telling you is think for yourself, and I'll see you next time.